Well, it's officially 11 o'clock, so I think we can go ahead and get started. I know more and more students will be joining us as we continue on. My name is Mindy Rieger. I'm the Director of Development at MESA statewide office. I want to thank all of you guys for joining us today for the recruiter panel. This is panel B. It's a really great group of people, great companies. I think this is going to be a really informative discussion, and I'm super excited to hear what all of these ladies have to say. So in order to get started, I'm going to introduce each of them individually. Just a couple housekeeping things to get us started. To all the students, you are muted upon entry. So please use the chat function and or the Q&A function to submit questions or let us know information that you want to share out. We will be monitoring that. I will be monitoring that myself, as well as Brenda Salguero from my office. Both of us are here to keep everybody on track. So if you have any questions about MESA or anything like that, you're more than welcome to direct message me, Mindy, in the chat function. Other than that, I think we are good to go. So I'm going to introduce each of these awesome women and get started. So first off, we have Jessica Singh. She is the University Relations Manager at Cisco, and she is part of the university recruitment team, and she is works with different universities and university organizations to incorporate recruiting and branding events. And she calls herself the middle woman between Cisco and various universities on the West Coast. So welcome, Jessica. Yay.
Thanks, Mindy. I'm happy to be here.
No problem. Next, we have Kelly Johnson, and Kelly is the Talent Outreach Program Manager at Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. And I'm super excited about this because my husband actually works there, so it's really exciting to have Kelly. She is the Talent Outreach Program Manager and leads lab-wide talent outreach efforts to help the lab achieve its diversity and inclusion goals and talent acquisition objectives. She's responsible for developing the diverse talent pools, partnering with organizations within the local community like MESA, and participating in multidisciplinary and multicultural STEM conferences to increase brand awareness for the lab. So we're super excited to have Kelly with us, so a big welcome to her. And next we have Beethoven Sabar, and Beethoven is a recruiter at Zymergen, and we're super excited to have her here. And Zymergen's a new partner for MESA, so we're really excited to hear from them today during this session and also a little later today. She's extremely passionate about building a cohesive team and focuses on growing the organizations as a whole. She leverages technology to find top-tier talent, build a talent pipeline, promote, strengthen employment brand, and ensure a smooth, friction-free candidate experience. She's been in recruiting for about 10 years in a variety of industries and is currently with Zymergen, which is a science and materials innovation company. So we're super excited to have Beethoven, so welcome, Beethoven. And so other than that, I think we're going to get started. I'm going to toss it over to Megan, who can actually introduce herself. She's been a director with MESA for a while, and so Megan, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? We got good? All right. So welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Megan Dorico. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the MESA director up north in Roanoke Park, California at Sonoma State University. Thanks, Carisha, for the shout out. That's awesome. So I just, again, thank you again from MESA statewide, from the MESA centers, everything, for just showing up and the commitment to give back. So I thought we would just kick it off with just a question for students entering into sort of just this whole search to get opportunity, to get internships, to get experience. So I'll just call each one of you out unless you would like to just unmute, and then that would just indicate to me that you would like to talk. So Jessica, do you have any pointers for students just starting out? How do you get experience? How do you get an internship? Where do you start?
Yeah, so great question. I'm sure you all are wondering. So with Cisco, I would say, and I can say for just in general as well too, just working at other companies, I think the best way to kind of start getting your feet wet in an internship is just showing up to, and I know it's a little different right now because of COVID, but showing up to virtual events right now, getting those networks on your radar with the companies that you're interested in, really get that knowledge and that understanding of what the company does, the company that you're interested in, what they do, just, some basic information, what kind of products they work on, what kind of products they've created. Things like that are super important just to kind of get those conversations started with recruiters or even with hiring managers. So if you're looking for, specific roles, really do research, really kind of find out what you want to do. And I know it's kind of hard being in college, knowing, if when you're going through the internship process, if you're at, kind of beginning stages of college, I know it's a little bit challenging trying to figure out, what you want to do, but kind of do a little bit of, I guess, soul searching during your college career in the beginning, figure out what you really want to do. I think that is super important because then you know what your brand is and you'll know kind of how to, I guess, advertise yourself and speak to people who are hiring. So I think those are really important factors to know and to kind of continue on with as you are doing your search in your career. I think for me personally, because I'm kind of the events person for our recruiting team, I think it's super important to attend these events and ask great questions, and that's kind of how you can stand out during the event as well. And just even on the side, just work on different projects and different things that are related to the field that you're interested in. So I think those are kind of good ways to get started when you're interested in an internship and kind of starting out your career. So just a couple of pointers. I might have some more that pop up in my mind later on as we go on.
Sounds great. I really love how, you're talking about exploring, and, I tell my students, collect data, right? Like go out there, try new things. And I also loved what you said about showing up, because that's close to half the battle, right? Of just showing up. Now with Zoom, it's easier than ever to just basically log in, say hi, meet a recruiter, talk about internship opportunities and things like that. So thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah,
I'll pass it over to Kelly. Do you have any follow-up thoughts or anything to add?
Yeah, definitely. So there are a lot of pathways into the laboratory. We have the Workforce and Development and Education site. So anyone that goes to education.lbl.gov can find dozens of internship opportunities into the lab. And so they vary depending on what your interest is regarding research or your majors or what you really are looking for, depending on the time of the year as well. So we have some diversity programs as well that could interest for the internships. So we do community college internships. We do the GEM Fellowship, graduate degrees for minorities in engineering and science. We had the Mickey Leland Energy Fellowship, that is like summer research internships aligned with the DOE's Office of Energy or Fossil Energy. And then we have the Visiting Faculty Program, which is the DOE Office of Science Summer Research Internship for faculty and student teams. So there's a lot, and that's just like 4 of them that I mentioned. There's more than 12 depending on your degree. So if you go to that website, or because Berkeley Lab is open source, you can Google internships at Berkeley Lab and the site will come up and you can just see all of the various internships by degree. So undergraduate, post-bac, if you're looking for a graduate or postdoc, that all is available there. So a lot of different pathways, a lot of different options for you.
Definitely. Thanks so much for that broad overview too of all the different possibilities out there, as well as the URL, and just as simple as Googling it. It's amazing how many students think that some of these opportunities are hidden or anything like that, and it's just like there's REU Finder, there's Indeed.com. You've got so many different resources out there. So sometimes navigating that search process can be so daunting or scary. But that's exactly what we're talking about. There are programs made for MESA students. We want those people doing those internships, doing those research opportunities, getting those students in the labs. So I'll turn it over to Beethoven. Do you have anything from Zymergen's kind of lens in terms of internships or getting experience, or for students starting out?
Yeah, maybe I can start off a quick few tips in terms of just getting your feet wet in terms of internship. I would say like start early, whether you're a freshman or a senior or a recent grad. Now is the time. There's plenty of resources out there. There's just a lot of resources out there, more than ever. And so in terms of Zymergen actually has, we adopted our internship program virtually this year, which is great. We typically, our internship starts over the summer and it's about 10 to 12 weeks. So we also have externs that typically starts like 4 months over the summer. And so if you're interested in career opportunities in Zymergen, I would highly recommend to check our career page. We offer career opportunities with diverse teams such as automation, bioinformatics, business development, chemistry, data science. We have also a lot of fermentation teams within Zymergen. And not only on the science side, but we also have other teams that hires interns, like our finance team, for example, or a legal team. So whether you're interested in specific areas, I would highly recommend to check our website, especially during the summertime.
Great. And that kind of leads to one of the Q&A questions. So students, if you're listening along, at the bottom part of the Zoom window, there's a little conversation bubble that says Q&A. And so I'm going to ask one of the questions from the Q&A box. We're going to answer this live. It's about, entry level and internships, and that's how has COVID really impacted each one of your companies? And we'll circle back to Jessica first. At Cisco, has there really been a big change for you in terms of that? And how are you pivoting? How are you changing and all of that? What should students know?
Yeah, so there's been a big change. We've been working virtually. I think the minute we kind of found out, I think end of February, we all started globally at Cisco working virtually, and we were very fortunate enough for our internship this past summer. We were very fortunate enough to just keep our internship virtual. None of our internships were affected in any way. They were just virtual. And it was kind of interesting. We all had to kind of pivot, just the university, team had to pivot to coming up with fun ways. I think our concern was making sure our interns were feeling like they were able to connect and, connect with their hiring managers or even with just HR, the recruiting team, and with other interns. But the neat thing was that we were able to create all these different ways to virtually connect with our interns, which was an amazing thing that I don't think we would be able to normally do this. So we had a really cool event this past summer. We usually have our CEO, you get to meet with our CEO in person in the San Jose office in California. But of course we couldn't do that this year, so we did that virtually. And then we had Charlie Puth, the singer, he was able to sing for us. So it was really neat. We probably wouldn't have been able to do that if we weren't virtual. So that was a really cool thing. We, created something called Fun Fridays, where we did all these virtual game nights, or like a Cisco with Disco type of thing. We made sure that we created like a mentorship program where the interns were able to connect with, different mentors or different senior level, other engineers within Cisco. And so we created a lot of different programs that we normally didn't have in the past, which helped us and which helped our interns just kind of, be able to feel like they were in the office per se. I know it never will feel like that all the way, but we had a very good summer, I would say. And if, we do decide to continue next year, like everything, we're kind of waiting on everything, but if we decide to continue being virtual, I think we definitely, had a good run this summer. So, if we have to do it, then I think, we'll be, very pivotal on that. We learned a couple of things this past summer, but I think it was overall good change for us. So nothing too serious, had to be changed, but of course everyone's, working virtually right now. So that's kind of the main change that we had to kind of pivot and change to.
Great. Thanks so much, Jessica. I know at least at the university level, we're also trying to find creative ways to connect, and it's fun to hear of other ways that students are getting engaged. A quick follow-up for you, Jessica, is when students do apply to your internships for next summer, are they applying based on location, or are they assuming it's kind of going to be virtual? Because I see what Kelly typed in as her answer. So they've already made the call that those are going to be virtual. So are students going to be looking location-based wise, or how would they apply?
They would, at this point, we were just told that we will be working, just Cisco employees at this point will be working until June 2021. So since our internships do start in May, some do start in May, there's probably, I want to say, like a 99.9% chance that it'll be virtual, just to be on the safe side. So yeah, I don't think location matters. The cool thing about Cisco is that we have so many different locations to work for, and a lot of them were already remote to begin with before COVID. So when you apply, and I'll go ahead and I'll put our job site on here as well, so I can share that with you all. When you apply, it'll give you an option to choose different locations to apply. So that wouldn't just guarantee that whatever location you have on there, like that's the only location you'll be working at. So but in summary, we will be working from home most likely next summer too, so it doesn't matter what location you put in there.
That sounds great. Yeah, I know some students are either not sure if they should apply, or not sure how to navigate the system and all that stuff, and really if you don't put your name in the hat, you're not going to get the internship, right? So exactly. Or that research experience. So
exactly. No, we have we have a big global team too. So we've done some virtual events and virtual connections with other countries like India and China. And so, I mean, you can honestly work anywhere virtually. I think that's one thing we've all learned this year. We can be virtual and work, the same or maybe even more efficiently. So yeah, don't feel free to, I'll go ahead and I'll send the jobs link
to the chat. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then Kelly, do you want to add to anything? You've responded to a couple. So folks on the Q&A, there's going to be answered questions. Kelly has already indicated that their internships for 2020 and 2021 are virtual, and hiring numbers have not decreased because of COVID. Do you want to add anything, Kelly?
Yeah, I think someone else asked if, what does the summer internship look like at Berkeley Lab? One of the things to remember, because these come out of the Workforce Development Education Office for the DOE. So these are educational programs. You also get paid for them. So the research does spend about 10 weeks in the summer term. If you apply for a fall internship, it's about 16 weeks. They spend that time at the DOE National Laboratory, Berkeley Lab. You get to choose, and you have to make 3 selections. And you are engaged in a research project under the guidance of a laboratory research team or a PI. So it could be a scientist or engineer, depending on what your focus is. And so we did everything virtually. So we did our spring internships virtually this year, which was a first, and we did summer. Summer's usually our biggest class. We have over 100 interns, sometimes up to 150. We definitely had less than 150 this year. Because it was virtual, some people declined to do that. But you are assigned a team, you are assigned a mentor. And during that, you have workshops, you have writing skills development, you do a poster or oral presentation project, and then we had to move to an aerial tour. Normally you get tour of all the user facilities at Berkeley Lab, but we had to go to aerial tours. And then there's some specific lectures and seminars that go into that as well. But you have a mentor throughout that entire process. And so there's some tips, and I'll put a link in the chat about how to reach out to a researcher, how to express some interest about our internship programs. I noticed someone asked, what do you have to do to really kind of stand out? The most important thing when applying for an internship at Berkeley Lab is have a passion for the science and the research that takes place. If you're passionate about that, if you have an interest in a specific research project, the scientist or engineer is going to know that. If you want to be part of learning under them, then that's probably the most important aspect, is showing initiative and showing passion for the research. I can't stress that enough. It's really important.
Definitely. Thanks so much for adding that last piece in too. Yeah. And if you can get, undergraduate experience, and get to work with that PI or that, researcher, that's so great. And I just typed into the chat too, PI means principal investigator. So if that's a new word for you, no worries. I get that question all the time with students of what does that mean, and that's just the researcher that you would be assisting in their project and stuff. So that means they've had some sort of grant that was funded. So I want to turn over to Beethoven. So same sort of question, but also they specifically asked about Zymergen. Are those opportunities going to be open for summer 2021? They're not sure that they saw the list of opportunities for undergrads on the career part of the website. So how would one navigate to really look for opportunities at your company?
Yeah, and so we actually started early in terms of screening resumes and meeting the students. So typically we start like January, and that's something that we're going to be starting in 2021. In this year, like Cisco and Lawrence Berkeley Lab, Zymergen also adapted to a virtual internship this year. We have, so typically we have a line manager that we assign to every intern. And we also have a program manager that actually manages the entire internship program. And so there's definitely a lot of support from HR, and we typically assign an internship buddy for the intern and make sure that the hiring manager or the line manager has an onboarding plan for the intern, just to make sure that they have, they set goals and the project plan early on. And so, and that's something that they can actually work on throughout the summer. And at the end of the internship, they will also present their final project through a company-wide presentation, which allows them to talk about their learnings, talk about their milestones and accomplishments. And also at the end of the internship, we also ask interns to do a self-assessment and also review their performance with a peer, and also for their line manager to provide feedback. And so typically we also post our internship opportunity through Handshake. So if you guys are, for students who has access to Handshake, that's where typically we also post beside from our career page.
Great. So I'm just grabbing that link to Handshake there. Our campus also participates in Handshake too. So wow, the questions keep coming. This is great, folks. So it sounds like each company kind of has a sort of different cycle, but it's good to just keep checking those links, keep seeing if there's more opportunities. Some other questions are more like, say you're a civil engineer, or you're a first-year student, a freshman. They want to show that they're technically capable of the internship, and may or may not really fit with, that particular call or that internship. I know, Kelly, you talked about passion. Is there anything for someone who doesn't necessarily, feel like they might belong or could apply? What could they do to make themselves more attractive, or how would they fit into a company like yours? Kelly, do you want to follow up with that?
Yeah. One of the things to keep in mind is we're not expecting our interns to know everything or know what, about the research they're coming to, or the research area they're coming into. Being motivated, having initiative, those things we can't teach you, but everything else we can teach you when it comes to our research or technical or software, things like that. So just being motivated and eager and showing initiative and being proactive, that's it. That's what we're looking for. That's what's going to help you be successful.
And I would, to that point, Kelly, I would say you could really demonstrate that in like a personal statement. You could show in your resume, previous examples of in-class projects, or, summer projects, individual projects. I know we had another question from a software, where was that one? I'll find it in a second, but there's ways to show that you're motivated, you're, you know, committed and all that. And again, yes, you do not need to know everything. Why would you go to an internship if you knew everything, right? And then to the civil engineering point, I would also say, you know, internships are opportunities to explore. They're abilities to go off and say, you know, try bioengineering, right? So maybe you really do love civil engineering, but let's go try bioengineering for a summer. It's not going to hurt you. So what if all of your coursework, you know, is different? Well, you've at least had the mathematical background and again, that, you know, drive, that motivation to do well. And I think that's what matters the most. Anyone, Jessica or Beethoven, you want to follow with any of that? Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's even important just to join like different student organizations on campus. If you're like, for example, civil engineer, but you're interested in a role, let's just say, for example, at Cisco, we hire a lot for software engineers. You can join a student organization that focus, you know, computer science club or, you know, Society of Women Engineers. So there's so many different organizations that you can join that, you know, you can put on your resume too. We love to see that. That kind of, you know, that helps you stand out, that shows that you're interested in something, you know, outside of your normal scope, I guess, of your, you know, what you're majoring in. So I think that's super important. I like to always tell people my story. I know I was in college a long time ago, but just as an example, so I'm a child and adolescent development major from San Jose State University, and I wanted to be a teacher. So I'm obviously not a teacher. So, you know, I was accepted, you know, as university manager at Cisco. So, you know, as an example, just to show you guys, like, you know, whatever you're majoring in, you can always kind of gear towards something else. If something else is interesting to you. So it's not like, you know, you wouldn't be considered, you know, in whatever you're interested in. So just as an example, I like to throw it out there.
That's awesome. Definitely. Beethoven, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Jessica and Kel already said. You know, internship is an opportunity for you to network, to kind of figure out what interests you. Some students are probably still in the exploratory mode of trying to figure out what are they passionate about, what they really wanted to do long term. And I think internship allows you to kind of explore that. And also thinking, you know, just not limiting yourself to internship, but also taking on projects, for example, of you know, probably, you know, taking on projects that will allow you to boost your skills or, you know, explore the industry that you're particularly interested in. So I think just being open into like different avenues and different pathways and just trying to kind of look for resources that are available to you.
Definitely. We had a question about specifically networking. Now that we're not really in person for the, you know, foreseeable internship cycle, how do you suggest folks network the best? I know, Jessica, you were talking about, you know, I think it was one-on-one meetings or group meetings and stuff, and you know, LinkedIn is always there. Is there any other connection pieces that have been helpful for the interns you've kind of overseen?
Yeah, so I know I kind of mentioned a little earlier about just attending, like for Cisco, I posted the jobs.cisco.com link in the chat box. Not only do we post our jobs on there, we also post our virtual events on there, which will hopefully eventually be, you know, in-person events. But the cool thing is, if you're not close to the Cisco office, or, you know, if we're hosting a specific event at a specific university, you don't have to, you know, right now you don't have to feel like you have to drive really far or you can't make it. You can kind of take the advantage of it being virtual. So we had, you know, a bunch of virtual events this past fall that we kind of just wrapped up right now, but we will be picking back up again probably in the middle of January with, you know, recruiting for the springtime. So I would definitely keep that link, you know, not only to look for jobs, but also just, you know, check out our events. We usually have, you know, information sessions, and then we also have like one-on-one chats where you can, you know, speak with hiring managers. and even recruiters as well. So just keep an eye out for those. We should start posting, events probably, I want to say after the holidays, after the new year. So just, keep an eye out, and, you'll see different postings for different events that you can attend.
Great, thanks. Anyone else want to add to that, or what their company does differently? Kelly, do you recommend reaching out to a researcher before you apply? Or, because I know you posted that awesome how to apply link. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. And you can do them simultaneously. A lot of times, reaching out to a researcher involves researching our website, which is vast, when you're trying to narrow down what area of research you want to be a part of. So I go to lbl.gov, look at our areas of research, and just kind of figure out. We have more than 30 different areas of research, so there's a lot to choose from. And all of the research teams, emails, contact information, all of that is public. You email them, mass email them, let them know what your interests are, everything you've been involved with, just really toot your own horn, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's definitely something I recommend for you to do.
Yeah. Sometimes those cold emails can be really scary, but I always tell students, you have nothing to lose, right? They're expecting you to email them. So just do it, right? And start that conversation, especially now that it's virtual. You can just say, hey, are you free Friday morning for a coffee over Zoom, right? So it can be very low stakes. You don't have to have like a CV ready and, paragraphs of why you're perfect for their research lab and all those other things. That's not expected. That's a bar that sometimes I think students perceive that are definitely not that high. Related to that, we had a question coming in from a community college student where, entering in a resume or applying to a particular internship kind of feels like an ocean of other people that are more qualified. So any thoughts to make yourself stand out if you're applying online? We mentioned those emails, contacting people ahead of time, I think is really, really important. But is there any way to, this specific question is, how do you, stand out? How do you portray yourself and your passion in your cover letter in your resume? Kelly, do you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that, because one of the things you need to be aware of from a diversity work program or workforce development standpoint, community college students right now are prime. They're just prime. All the companies want to really make an investment in them. There's a lot of initiatives within the Bay Area to really work with community colleges and their students to give them the skills they need to really kind of boost our workforce development in the Bay Area. So there is a lot of opportunities. You just need to work with your career center at your school and identify what those initiatives are. I'm familiar with that because I sit on the Alameda County Workforce Development Board, and so there's a lot of new programs coming out to really address that. And we also have one with community colleges around quantum. Anyone who happens to be interested in going into the quantum space, Berkeley Lab is one of five national labs that was awarded money to really invest in our community and then just grow our talent pipeline in that area. So we're focusing on 9 community colleges in the Bay Area to do that. But definitely look at CCI on our website for the community college internship. It is fantastic. We have some great success stories on people who started out in that program and now are working on their PhD, and the LAP pays for that. The LAP pays for your education. So
that's awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Anything else, how to stand out for community college students or even first or second year students that are just starting out? How do you display passion and make sure that you land that internship? Any suggestions? Go ahead, Beethoven.
Yeah, so I think just to making sure that you tailor your resume based on the specific position. I think that typically candidates just send one version of their resume to all positions that are applying for. But if you can actually tailor your experience based on the qualification that the internship or that particular position is looking for, that will definitely help in make you stand out.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Jessica, do you want to add anything else to that? Go ahead.
No, yeah, I think Beethoven, that's a really great point. I think when you're looking at resumes all day, you're looking for specific, I guess, keywords as a recruiter. So I think it's super important to have, whatever you're looking for, to kind of tailor your resume to make sure it, fits in with what you're looking for in the role that you're applying for. So I think that's definitely super important to, include that on your resume.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you don't know where to start or what even tailoring means or anything like that, reach out to your career center. That's both at the community college level, at the four-year institution level. Your MESA director would know kind of how to help you tailor a resume. And we also have upcoming mock interviews with, industry professionals. That's an okay question to ask, so use those mock interviews or those informational interviews to kind of get feedback at a low stakes way. If you're currently doing research, I know a couple of my MESA members on here are also currently doing research. Ask your research mentor at your university, will you look over this resume and this job description? Do these really match? How could I make them kind of better? That's what they're there for, to give you that feedback. And then the next question that we are going to answer live, or Kelly, go ahead and finish answering via typing. All panelists are able to do that. What are you looking for in a behavioral interview, or kind of what questions might you ask, or what are you evaluating potential interns when they answer those behavioral questions? Go ahead,
Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I was going to tie my answer, but at the student level, we really don't typically focus on a formal behavior interview process. We really want to understand who you are, what your motivations and interests are, to make sure they're aligned with the team. But typically the questions are going to be about, how you manage challenges, how you work with teams, are you able to collaborate, your positions around working in a diverse and inclusive work environment, which is really important to us at the lab. So that's typically how our questions are going to be tailored, but not very formal.
Perfect.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, very similar to Kelly for Cisco too. I think the main goal, whoever you're speaking with, your interview with, their main goal is just to kind of figure out just who you are, what you're interested in. Usually we have some technical questions thrown in there for mostly like our software hardware engineer roles, but it's just very simple questions about your background and just kind of just talking over your resume really. So it's nothing too intense. It's just it's for an internship too, so hiring manager, recruiter just wants to get to know you and just kind of get an understanding of your background and your skills.
And I would just add to that also practice, so like Kelly was saying, we're just trying to, ask some questions in terms of, how you handle competing priorities and projects and things like that. And what happens when you have a challenge, and then what Jessica was saying, just get to know you, right? So if it's the first time ever talking about yourself in that way, it can be really challenging. So I've been telling MESA students lately, grab a friend or go on to Zoom, but just record yourself and practice answering some questions just like in the mirror, right? And that can really go a long way. So that way, when you're face to face with a recruiter or a PI or someone, and that way it's not the first time you've told that story, right? So, and you can really listen back to that as well. So Beethoven, do you want to add anything to those tips?
Yeah, so same with Kelly and Jessica. So very fundamental, basic questions we typically ask a student. We wanted to learn about their interests. We wanted to learn, what are they looking for an internship, what they wanted to learn. And depending on positions, there are positions that we require some technical qualifications. So we will look into that as well. But typically we ask them their availability, if they are able to work on kind of certain projects. And then in Zymergen, we typically don't do on-site interviews. So all of the interviews are over the phone. And also they will have an opportunity to talk to their line manager, who is part of the interview process.
Great, so practice those phone interviews too, right? So if it's not Zoom, then call up a friend, call up your mom, be like, ask me a bunch of questions. Really, really good. A related question is, how do you connect with an employee or recruiter to better understand the role, to tailor a resume specific to, let's say, a software or languages that they would use at, Cisco, or say for a particular research project, Kelly, something like that, or what Zymergen uses. So how would you get to know that? Go ahead, Kelly.
I believe that there probably should be multiple resumes, like keep multiple resumes or CVs, depending on the job you're applying to. And then make sure you tie your experience on your resume back to what's in the job description. At your level, you're not going to have a lot of experience in this, but just show anything that you've done with regard to training or webinars or certificates or something you've done that really ties back into that particular role. And just show some eagerness and motivation. We're not expecting you to know everything. Keep that in mind. So the things that we can teach you, we will. Most companies will. Yeah.
And demonstrate the ability to learn, right? Kind of going along with that is just being like, I didn't know Python, but I went out there and I looked up some syntax. I played around with some lines of code. And I eventually got the script to work, right? That shows tenacity, that shows your ability to learn, sometimes teach yourself if necessary, and then just say, hey, I got the job done. Sure, I don't know Python to a really high proficiency, but I got the job done, and given the right kind of mentoring relationship or, project, I would be able to do better with Python in the future, right? So be coachable.
Totally.
Go ahead, Beethoven.
Yeah, so we, as Kelly said, we don't expect students to know everything, but having the opportunity to draw or some experiences, not necessarily professional experiences, but maybe non-work related examples that can demonstrate certain skills or attributes that you have. Maybe you can recall experiences from projects that you have completed in school, or any volunteer work, or anything that can showcase your experiences. And as Megan said, just kind of showing that growth mindset as well. I think just having that kind of experience reflect in your resume would be very helpful.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think a lot of times, and I feel like I'm guilty of this too, so I try to keep myself accountable for it. A lot of times when I'm talking to candidates, we'll just talk, and I already reviewed their resume. For example, I had a security consulting engineer internship that I was working on this summer, and I was talking to a candidate, and I'm like, I'm looking at your resume, tell me about your your security experience. And I took it, and when I called this candidate, I was a little bit hesitant because I didn't see any security experience on their resume, but I thought, okay, I'm going to, give them an opportunity, to see what they have. And they listed off all this, security experience. They were in security clubs, organizations, they did all these security projects. And I'm like, wait, why isn't it on your resume? Put it on there. So I think a lot of times we forget, even myself, in my day-to-day job here at Cisco, I forget sometimes the little things that I do, and I forget to add it to my resume. And I think a lot of times we do that. So make notes, when you're in your classes, make notes, if you have another internship and, for the future, start making notes of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, because you forget, and you just get so wound up in your job that you forget to include that on your resume. And you don't want, a recruiter or hiring manager to overpass you, not consider you because it's not on there, right? So I'm always like, no, add this to your resume, and revamp it up and send it to me, because I don't want, I want to send it to the hiring manager with all those details on there. I think the more details on your resume of your experience and what the better. Because you never know on an opportunity that you didn't even realize you forgot about including on your resume that you might miss out on. So I think that's super important. Just something that even for myself, I have to remind myself, what did I do today at work? I need to write it down just, for my resume. So I think it's important to have that. And I think it's just a good thing to kind of, as a reminder, to remember.
And students, if you don't know really where to start, say you were hired for an internship, start with the job description, or start with, some of your courses, look at the syllabi, right? So look at the syllabus, what projects or what, actionable skills did you work on in those courses? That gives you a starting point. So we know the cadence of the semester, right about now, everyone's, looking at Thanksgiving and ready for the break, and then finals hit, right? Take those breaks throughout the semester to pause and figure out, what did I learn? What did I get out of this? What could I add to my resume? I actually have some students set up a Google form for themselves. So every single time they do something, instead of actually putting it on the resume, they just fill out the Google form for themselves. It's not shared with anyone else. They just literally put it onto the Google form. And at the end of the semester, they look back and they have rows and rows of skills and projects and things that they've done, but they just didn't have time to really think about in terms of resume wordage and verbiage and stuff. So sometimes that's really helpful to keep track of, what am I doing right now, right? And I think Kelly mentioned having multiple resumes, multiple CVs. If you have one really, really long one, that way you could then tailor and pick and choose from all those different experiences. So maybe your Google form or your Google spreadsheet is all those different experiences, and then you could pick and choose from there. So definitely. We have about 10 or so minutes before we're going to start wrapping it up. So I do that in my career still, said Wendy. That's awesome. Yeah, me too. Always thinking of new ways to keep track of all the different projects that we're doing. How about Jessica, Kelly, Beethoven? How did you get to where you are today? I always like asking that question. Jessica, you shared with us your major and how you thought you were going to go one way, and then it ended up differently. I always think that in terms of students, everyone's path is different. So I always love hearing those stories.
Yeah, I actually love telling my story because it just kind of shows you that you can kind of do anything as long as, even if you're majoring in it, or that was kind of your interest in the beginning, and that's where your experience is at, you can kind of shift to different areas as long as you have the knowledge about it, and as long as you are really passionate about it. So I know, like Megan said, I did share a little bit about it, but I was one of those college students. I couldn't decide on what major I wanted to do. And I probably changed my major, I want to say 7 times. Like, I was really bad. I actually started off with HR, and which is funny because I ended up in HR, but I wanted to do journalism. I was considering engineering. Like, I was like jumping all over the place. And it came to a point when I transferred over to San Jose State, it was coming to that point where they would not let people change their majors anymore. Like, it was like, I forgot what, I think it was like budget cuts or something. They just said you can't change your major anymore. So I'm like, like I really have to figure it out because I'm graduating. I'm supposed to be graduating in 2 years. So when I transferred over from my community college, I was a journalist. Like, I wanted to be like a journalist. That was my career. That was my career path at that time. And once that kind of kicked in, I'm like, like I really need to figure it out. So I wanted to be a teacher since I was really young. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with that now. So I did that. I graduated. I walked into my first preschool. It was like me and like another teacher and like 30 students, and like 30 4-year-old students, 3-4-year-old students. And I'm like, I was just like, okay, I don't know if I could do this right now. Like, I know this is a lot. This is very overwhelming. So I wanted to go back and do my credentials to be a teacher. And then I decided, like, maybe I'll go back and do my MBA instead. So I have that business side, and I want to work for a company now. That's what I want to do. So I think it's great for students who do internships throughout their college, profession, because I didn't do that. And I think super important to continue on. But yeah, I went back to school. When I went back to school, I started working as a recruiter at Flextronics. It's in San Jose, I believe, in Milpitas in San Jose. So I started working there. I was just recruiting for the professional side, meaning non-university, so people that have been in their careers for like, at least 7 to 10 years plus. It was interesting, but then once I got into my next company at Ericsson, I started really working closely with the university team, even though I was doing professional hiring. And that's when I really found my passion, for working with university students. So I like to tell myself to make myself feel a little bit better about my major, changing around issues that I had in college. I like to think that, you know, the child and adolescent development major kind of went towards working with university students. But yeah, that's kind of my story.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I actually recruit for people to go into our credential program, and I totally tell them, be in a classroom, because until you're in a classroom with 30 little humans, you don't realize what
idea.
it's like, right? Yeah. So, and we also have several MESA students that go on to become biology high school teachers, right? So it all just depends what you want to do, but make sure you try it out. Another reason to do an internship, right? So
exactly.
Definitely. Kelly or Beethoven, do you have a story of how you got to where you are?
Go ahead, Kelly.
Actually, I did start out in a STEM major in Michigan State and changed my mind after a couple years, and I just went into like more management HR focused, which was good for me, because the problem I had in the sciences was, at that time in my life, I don't think I was empowered enough to really kind of, you know, withstand how it was for women in STEM at that time. And I just was like, okay, I'm bailing. I'm going to, maybe I did it because it was probably easier, but I really enjoy talking to people, and I really enjoy relationships with people. So I found a career that kind of aligned with that. And then one of the things that I recall about that time in my life is really trying to figure out what you want to do is I didn't have anyone to go to, you know, to really say, how do I handle this? Or how do I manage this? I didn't have a mentor. And so I like to make sure I communicate a lot of information to students, you know, information that I didn't get, you know, and share, you know, opportunities and tips to help them along, because I don't recall getting that. And I just think there's so many things that they should know, or so many things you should know as students that people aren't telling you. So I believe in the transparency and honesty of the process. So that's what I enjoy most about my choices, my career choice now, is I really get to, I guess, enlighten students about
and open doors. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for sharing, Kelly. That's really amazing that you get to empower others too, and open doors for people. That's great. Thanks for sharing. Go ahead, Beethoven.
Yeah, when Jessica was telling her story about her passion and interest in journalism, I have the same passion when I was young. I wanted to be a journalist. And when I was about to decide on what major I will take in college, I was just super confused because at that time, there's just a lot of interest in technology and sciences. And so my best friend at that time was taking an IT major. And so I copied her and joined her. And so I graduated with an IT degree. And then when I came to the US, I was looking for a part-time job while I'm trying to get an equivalent education here. And I came across to a recruiting job, and this company gave me an opportunity to be, I started as a sourcer and then eventually get into recruiting, and I really like it. And it just started from there, and I never looked back. And I've been recruiting for 10 years now. And so it's really, I mean, for me, just having the opportunity to kind of, match someone with a great opportunity and, with a great company is just fulfilling, and also going to help people navigate through the process. And so, yeah, it's recruiting is now my passion.
Very cool. Thanks so much. I love hearing people's stories. We have about 2 or so minutes before we're going to wrap up. We did get a question, and the panelists can totally type in an answer. If you want to enter a field that's new for you, say that you didn't major in, I know Jessica said that you changed your major so many times. Definitely reading research papers is a great way to do it. Alternatively, also at universities, at least at the upper division levels, some professors offer like journal clubs for example. So you can get together, you can read the same paper. Sometimes you have the opportunity to present on a paper, things like that. But another great way to pivot your field is to try out an internship, try out a research, you know, one unit of research at the undergraduate level. And if you don't encounter it in your classes, find it elsewhere. Go do outreach, go do the Bay Area Science Festival, go, you know, contact a researcher and say, hey, I'm interested in, you know, attending your lab meeting. That's also, with everything being virtual, I have recommended that to more and more students, to just ask if it's okay to be a fly on the wall and just see how a lab meeting works, because they're their own ecosystems, right? So every lab kind of functions differently. You know, the dynamics are different, all of that. So that's always good to try out. If you want to get into bio-related robotics, go see what that's like, whether that's at the university level or at Zymergen, right? So connect with the individual on LinkedIn, or are there any other suggestions you all have to Carl's question that's open right now? How else do you pivot into kind of something that you don't experience in your classes? Yes, so Carl, that would be independent research kind of. So there's lots of different opportunities. So you could talk to your MESA director, I would say, about figuring out a four-year institution that offers independent research. Or I'm sure Kelly has in one of those links, there's so many different research opportunities to conduct independent research or in a lab group to get that experience in a different field. And then the request from Carl is also for the panelists, if you can connect on LinkedIn, if you drop your links into the chat and or your emails, if you feel comfortable. But we're just about wrapping up. Thanks, Kelly. I'll add mine too in case anybody wants to connect. So fun. And I just want to extend just such a huge thank you to our panelists today. You know, it's so cool how you're prioritizing giving back to the MESA mission, and, you know, answering all of our questions and helping the students that are eventually going to be at your company. So we just really appreciate you taking the time on a Friday morning. And I'll turn it over to Mindy for some kind of closing thoughts or anything, where this recording will end up, if people need it, things like that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much to Jessica, Kelly, Beethoven, and of course, Megan, for a great job moderating. It was an awesome panel. I'm so glad we were able to have so many students on, and we have recorded this session, and it will be available on Jumpstart in the coming days. We just have to get it from them. Excuse me. So make sure to check back in the community. And so this, we will send a message out when it is available to you if you did RSVP for this session. Speaking of RSVPs, please RSVP for the remaining sessions. Today at 1 p.m. we have interdisciplinary career paths with Zymergen. So that's taking place at 1 today. So you'll learn more about that company and you know, the different ways that you can actually work there and unique ways that you can work there. It might not be exactly what you think. And then we have at 3 p.m. 2 options. We have a technical interviewing session, and then we also have navigating the virtual job search and interview experience. I know some people ask questions about what it's like during COVID. This is going to be a really great session, how to approach interviews and everything virtually. And it's actually going to be done by somebody from Uber. So really cool opportunities. And then next week, we have the informational interview session. So make sure that you are signed up to do those. And then I just have a couple other things I wanted to let you know. We have really exciting news. One of our MESA alums named Victor Glover is actually going into space tomorrow. He is an astronaut and we are super proud. So make sure you check out the launch tomorrow. It's all over our social media. He's super proud of being a MESA alum, so we're really excited for him. It's the launch by NASA and SpaceX, so he's the pilot. So check him out, Victor Glover, and you know, everyone's a MESA alum or will be a MESA alum here, so we're super excited about that. And that's all I have. If you have any remaining questions for any folks, somebody is going to a baby shower. If you have any other questions for these folks, I think some of them shared their emails in the chat window. Thank you again to everyone and have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys.